Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of The Great Ruler Season 2 Part 16 based on novel. So let's start. Floating in midair, Mu Chen discovered those gazes aiming towards him, sparkling with suspicion. Unable to help it, he faintly curled his lips and said, "The weakness of this spiritual king is clearly on its forehead. Your messy attacks, even if you attack it for a day, might not even be able to cause damage to it." Only upon hearing this did everyone gawk, before hurriedly turning their vision towards the spiritual king. At this time, the eye-piercing glow on the latter's forehead was somewhat restrained. Faintly, one could seemingly see that on the position of its forehead was a gemstone that seemed to be the approximate size of a human head. That gemstone was sparkling with an eye-piercing glow, while frightening spiritual energy fluctuations continuously radiated from within it. Everyone stared at the eye-piercing gemstone before realizing in a flash. So that was the weak spot of the spiritual king. This was why Mu Chen's strike was able to force it back. From Zhao Qingshan's and Mu Fengyan's faces, one could clearly notice that they had taken a slight breath of relief. If Mu Chen truly possessed the strength to force the spiritual king back head-on, exactly how frightening was the strength he possessed? If Mu Chen truly possessed such strength, who was able to snatch the spiritual king's spiritual light from him? Roar! While they were in the process of realization, the gigantic body of the spiritual king started to erupt in a bright and resplendent glow once again. The attack it had received to the gemstone on its forehead had seeming enraged it. While it roared, a gigantic streak of spiritual energy descended from the skies, akin to a light beam, violently rumbling towards Mu Chen. Having made ample preparation, Mu Chen immediately exhibited the soaring dragon technique. As the dragon shade rolled and unfurled, his figure had already appeared 1,000 meters behind the spiritual king, evading the light beam. Rumble! The light beam descended on the ground, smashing the earth apart, creating a gigantic pit. Faintly, there seemed to be some sparkling light. Mu Chen shot a look at the gigantic pit, while slightly gawking. However, before he could process it clearly, a gigantic shadow had already enveloped him. The spiritual king's gigantic hand had already ferociously patted over. Space exploded as Mu Chen hurriedly exhibited the dragon soaring art, evading the gigantic palm the moment it made contact with him. Mu Chen showed himself again, a grave expression all over his face, as his heartbeat sped up by a bit. The attack if this spiritual king was too terrifying. He should definitely not let it near him. If not, the injury he would receive would not be light. Attack the gemstone on its forehead together. Fortunately, the other people had sobered up at this moment. With explosive roars, they shot and flashed over. Swift and fierce attacks started to rumble and shoot towards the gemstone on the spiritual king's forehead that was sparkling with eye-piercing brilliance one after another. Facing the group of attacks heading towards its weak point, the spiritual king did not directly receive the attacks this time. Raising its gigantic hands, it completely blocked the incoming attacks. However, the combined attacks of everyone had some crafty ones mixed in. Even though the spiritual king had tried to block, there were still numerous attacks that violently smashed against the gemstone. The gigantic body of the spiritual king was, once again, forced back. However, as its body retreated, it, once again, resisted the many incoming attacks and stood back at its original position. Bang! Enormous spiritual energies gushed out from its palm in the form of light beams, smashing a few unfortunate fellows till they vomited blood and were shot away. Their auras were instantly depressing, before a ray of light descended from the sky, sending them away. Facing this kind of loss, everyone only shot a glance before violently attacking with rapt attention again. Blade lights and sword glints blotted the skies, screaming as they violently chopped and hacked at the eye-piercing gemstone on the spiritual king's forehead. This spiritual king had indeed only been born not that long ago. Although it still possessed quite terrifying strength, it appeared rather sluggish, as if it had not yet reached the degree of fullness and smoothness. Due to this, Zhao Qingshan and the rest dared to focus their attention to its forehead. If the spiritual king had passed through this newly born phase, its strength would violently increase. At that time, even they might not be able to escape through the gap of its teeth. Everyone continued in their assault. At the same time, their losses had also continued. The original number of hundreds had now been left with only half of that. The rest had already been sent out of the spiritual light world with a pat from the spiritual king. This level of loss could be called disastrous. However, although their losses were disastrous, the spiritual king was forced to consume quite a bit of its energy. Its attacks were already not as wild and violent as the initial ones, with it only focusing tenaciously to defend the gemstone on its forehead. Ha ha, everyone increase your power. This spiritual king is indeed a newborn. Its strength isn't as powerful as we've imagined. As long as we can evade its attacks, it's all good. Floating in midair, Mu Fengyang looked towards that spiritual king, whose attacks were gradually weakening, before shouting out with a big chuckle. Upon hearing this, a shock went through everyone's mind as they sped up their assault. Mu Chen had also sent a streak of spiritual energy rumbling out. However, his eyes were continuously sparkling. This spiritual king's strength was, indeed, not as strong as he had expected. Was it truly due to it being just born? Mu Chen's vision swept past the place where the spiritual king stood as his brows faintly wrinkled. There was a huge pit on the ground that was caused by its step. However, regardless of how everyone attacked, the spiritual king did not even leave that boundary. Exactly what's up, murmured Mu Chen as he stared at the patch of ground, frowning faintly. Bang! While Mu Chen was muttering to himself, the spiritual king extended his gigantic hand. 10,000 rays of light erupted out, violently smashing straight at Mu Fengyang, who was trying to boost everyone's morale. Seeing that the spiritual king had locked onto him, the face of Mu Fengyang faintly changed. Just as he had evaded the rays of light, his eyes caught a glimpse of Mu Chen, who was not far behind him. At this moment, a faint flash sparkled within his eyes. His body suddenly flew sideways, appeared coincidentally in front of Mu Chen. At the same time, the spiritual king's gigantic hand had already ferociously covered over them, enveloping the two of them. Under the envelope of its shadow, Mu Chen sobered up from his slightly absent-minded state. After seeing what's in front of him, his expression immediately changed. Hee hee. A smile with ill intent surfaced from the corner of Mu Fengyang's mouth. Spiritual light erupted from his body, as a thick suit of deep yellow spiritual armor appeared on his body, tightly enveloping him within it. This spiritual armor was obviously a pretty good defensive spiritual artifact. Bye-bye. A cold laugh rang out as the spiritual armor enveloped Mu Fengyang's body within it. Mu Chen's eyes turned frosty as he thought, this fellow is actually trying to lure trouble to me. He wanted to take advantage of the spiritual king's strength to shove Mu Chen out of the spiritual light world. However, this Mu Fengyang was too naive. Did he think that by doing this, he would be able to bind Mu Chen's hands such that he would be unable to do anything about the incoming attack? A black light gushed forth in front of Mu Chen's body as a black pagoda surfaced, before enveloping Mu Chen within it. The 9-layered pagoda possessed extremely strong defensive capabilities, and was considered the strongest defense Mu Chen had. If its defensive capabilities were genuinely discussed, even Mu Fengyang's spiritual armor would be inferior to it. Bang! As the 9-layered pagoda enveloped Mu Chen within it, the spiritual king's gigantic palm had violently patted down. A metallic sound rang out, as the two of them were immediately patted into the ground, violently piercing through the earth. A deep and gigantic pit was formed from their impact. In a sorrowful state, Mu Fengyang crawled out from the gigantic pit. Spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, he lowered his head to look at the spiritual armor on his body. There were some cracks on its surface. This filled his heart with pain. Turning his head, he proceeded to look at the deep pit not far from him. Dust and smoke had filled the air there. Under that sudden attack, it looked like that fellow had definitely suffered serious injuries. Let's see how you're gonna snatch the spiritual lights from us, sneered Mu Fengyang coldly. Suppressing the injuries within his body, he rushed towards the horizon once again. The attack from the spiritual king towards the two of them was seen by everyone. When Xu Huang and the rest saw only Mu Fengyang flying towards them, they felt slightly shocked. Looks like Mu Chen had suffered injuries that were not light this time. The actions that Mu Fengyang made were ambiguous, and no one had imagined that he would actually lure trouble towards Mu Chen. Mu Chen, the facial expression of the three Wang brothers changed. They proceeded to shoot a suspicious look at the innocent-looking Mu Fengyang. However, since they did not have any evidence, it would not be good to speak up now. Everyone shook their heads in regret. However, the present situation did not allow for them to be distracted. Therefore, they had quickly refocused their minds on launching their assault on the gradually weakening spiritual king. Mu Chen's been hit. From a distance away, upon seeing this play out in front of their eyes, the beautiful faces of An Ran and the girls instantly changed. Luo Li's brows faintly bunched up. Her pupils shot a cold look at the floating Mu Fengyang, however, she did not overly panic. Saying in a soft voice, "Relax, that Mu Fengyang had only received light injuries. Mu Chen isn't that frail." Seeing that Luo Li had not a single trace of panic, An Ran and the girls were able to quickly calm down, before faintly nodding their heads. As the crowd of people in the air continued to encircle and launch their assault on the spiritual king, no one had yet discovered Mu Chen's figure appearing beside the black pagoda within the deep, dust-filled pit. He looked up towards the intense battle, before looking at the stretch of earth with sparkling eyes. Sending his fist rumbling out, he created another deep pit and jumped within it. Next, he proceeded to continue his onslaught towards the ground. Very quickly, a deep hole was dug up by him. Mu Chen's figure vanished into the hole. As he vanished, the black pagoda started to revolve, covering the hole up. This way, even if the dust that filled the air had dissipated, no one would be able to discover Mu Chen's disappearance. They would only assume that he had hid within the black pagoda to recuperate. Bang! Bang! Underground, Mu Chen's body was covered with rippling black flames akin to armor as he continued to dig deeper into the ground. The thick earth and rocks were roasted and burnt away by the black flames. From the start, he had already discovered that something was slightly not right about this gathering point. Those spiritual knights would not vanish for no apparent reason. Furthermore, that spiritual king wasn't as strong as he had expected. Regardless of how they attack, that spiritual king would not leave 100 feet from its location. From the looks of it, it seemed that it was guarding over something. Since there was nothing above the ground for it to defend, Mu Chen had decided to search below the ground. With a low roar, Mu Chen revolved his spiritual energy, increasing the speed at which he penetrated the earth. After approximately a minute or so, something flashed past his mind. The ground below his hand, unexpectedly, disappeared as his figure dropped down. Mu Chen hurriedly stabilized his figure. Spiritual energy enveloped his body as he peered vigilantly at this subterranean space. As his vision looked over, the expression on his face started to freeze little by little. This is... Mu Chen took a deep breath of this subterranean air that was filled with the smell of the earth as thick shock and astonishment erupted forth from his heart. What appeared before Mu Chen's eyes was an extremely vast and spacious underground world. Within this underground world was innumerable clumps of light floating around. These clumps of light were extremely eye-piercing, while astonishing spiritual energy fluctuations radiated from them. These are all spiritual lights. Mu Chen looked at those thousands upon thousands of light clumps with shock in his eyes. From the spiritual energy contained within those light clumps, he could tell that those were spiritual lights of at least spiritual general grade. As of now, this number of spiritual lights were actually converged at this place. This scene was indeed extremely spectacular. Mu Chen's vision followed the bright and resplendent spiritual lights. Within the most central area of this underground world, he saw the most eye-piercing light clump. It was gorgeous and magnificent, with a faintly discernible crystal that was approximately 3.3 meters tall floating within it. This crystal was limpid and sparkling, and there seemed to be a thick fluid flowing within it. A bright and dim light glow, looking akin to a beating heart, seemingly possessed a mysterious life energy. Following the brilliant sparkle of that crystal, countless strands of spiritual lights, with spiritual energy streaks of light, were pouring out before pouring into that 3.3-meter tall crystal like an endless stream. This caused it to grow all the more brighter. Indescribable spiritual energy fluctuations were undulated, akin to waves, causing even Mu Chen's heart to hurriedly throb and pulse. No wonder, the spiritual knights in this extremely dangerous region had all turned into these spiritual lights. Mu Chen finally understood in a flash as to why he wasn't able to spot a single spiritual knight since he entered this gathering point. They had all been turned into spiritual lights. These spiritual lights were obviously providing spiritual energy for that crystal. Could it be that this place was created by the spiritual king, thought Mu Chen while feeling some shock. From the look of the situation underground, it clearly wasn't man-made. That meant that it was created by the spiritual king. He would have never thought that an existence without intelligence would actually be able to understand how to construct an underground world. This might be due to their abilities, however, this was sufficient to explain the mystery contained within this stretch of the world. No wonder why this spiritual king's strength isn't particularly strong, thought Mu Chen as he looked with fiery eyes at the bright and resplendent crystal. The spiritual energy within is surging to an astonishing degree. According to Mu Chen's estimates, the scene before him might be for the sake of helping the spiritual king cross over from its newly born and weak condition. Only when the spiritual king absorbed this crystal that had absorbed the spiritual energy from so many spiritual knights would the big fellow out there truly become a spiritual king. A faint sparkle flashed within Mu Chen's eyes, before he explosively shot out. Within a number of breaths, he had crossed over the numerous spiritual energies and got close to the bright and resplendent crystal. When nearing the crystal, he could see the movement of the thick spiritual liquid within. It seemed to form an illusionary shade that was faintly discernible, which looked incomparably mysterious. Mu Chen did not immediately take action against the crystal. His gaze swept below him, where he discovered a purple clump of light closest to the position of the crystal. Within that clump of light, there was a purple spirit crystal, however, it was far from the previous crystal that would make people shocked. However, the spiritual energy fluctuations erupting from it was still much more tyrannical when compared to those spiritual lights that Mu Chen and the rest had seen before. This is a heavenly transformation stage late-phase spiritual knight. A pleasantly surprised expression flashed past Mu Chen's eyes. Without a single bit of hesitation, a fist rumbled out as a violent spiritual energy impacted the purple clump of light. When the light clump shattered, the purple spirit crystal hidden within flew out, which was grabbed by Mu Chen. As the purple spirit crystal landed in Mu Chen's hand, it instantly radiated an extremely astonishingly pure spiritual energy. Mu Chen revolved his spiritual energy to absorb it, and he felt the consumed spiritual energy within his body starting to gradually restore. Truly worthy of being the spiritual light transformed from a spiritual knight at the heavenly transformation stage. Mu Chen laughed loudly. Without any trace of courtesy, he took action. Within a short span of a number of breaths, he had shattered over 10 purple light clumps, gathering the purple spirit crystals in his hands. These 10 purple spirit crystals would, at the minimum, be equivalent to thousands upon thousands of normal spiritual pawns. Hum. Hum. However, as Mu Chen snatched those 10 purple spirit crystals into his hands, the gigantic magnificent spirit crystal seemed to have sensed something and instantly started to hum and shake. Spiritual energy immediately gushed out of it, transforming into spiritual energy waves that violently swept towards Mu Chen. Spiritual energy without a single trace of attacking attribute, and you still want to cause harm to me. Upon seeing this, Mu Chen gave a laugh as he waved his sleeve. Spiritual energy burning with black flames erupted out, easily resisting against the incoming spiritual energy waves. In the next moment, he turned his fiery gaze towards the spirit crystal. That was the genuine treasure. With a clench of his hand, a long sword, sparkling with brilliance, appeared in a flash. Deep black spiritual energy covered it, as black flames surrounded it. With a step, he shot out, and appeared in front of that spirit crystal. The spiritual energy within his body fully erupted out as a gigantic lustrous black sword of 100 feet howled out from his sword edge, and furiously chopped down on the spirit crystal. A metallic sound rang out as the crystal bits flew everywhere. Acute pain radiated from Mu Chen's palm, as the web between his thumb and forefinger was torn. The hardness of this spirit crystal had exceeded his expectations. Creak! However, his full-powered slash had some effect. A crack appeared at a corner of the spirit crystal, causing a spirit crystal fragment, approximately the size of a fist, to break off, which was grabbed by Mu Chen. Upon grabbing it, Mu Chen felt his hand sink, as if he had just grabbed a heavy rock that weighed a ton. Astonishment flashed within Mu Chen's eyes. He knew that this was due to the condensation of spiritual energy to a terrifying stage that brought along this weight. Looks like the spiritual energy contained within this spirit crystal was too frightening. However, this made the fire burning within Mu Chen's eyes to grow all the more bigger. However, he did not know that on the instant he had chopped down on the spirit crystal, the spiritual king that was tangled up by Xu Huang, Zhao Qingshan and the rest had suddenly raised its head and roared furiously towards the skies. Roar? The roar transformed into a spiritual energy storm which swept across, shaking and sending the unprepared Xu Huang and the rest flying backwards. Stabilizing their bodies not far away, they looked with suspicion at the spiritual king, which had suddenly gone crazy. At this time the latter had not cared about them. With a tight clench of its gigantic fists, it carried along frightening spiritual energies as they violently smashed into the earth below it. Bang! The stretch of earth shook, akin to an earthquake happening, as gigantic fissures started to extend from under the spiritual king's feet. In the next moment, it started to explosively rush into the ground beneath at an astonishing speed. At this moment, Mu Chen, who was underground, had also discovered it. The expression on his face changed. Without daring to continue his stay, his figure explosively retreated. Bang! Giant stones suddenly descended as sunlight illuminated the underground world from the shattered earth. The place where Mu Chen previously stood was smashed through by a frightening power, leaving behind a bottomless black hole. This was the all-out strike of the crazy spiritual king, which was extremely terrifying. What is that? As the underground world was revealed under the sunlight, it was immediately discovered by Xu Huang and the rest, who were floating in the sky, causing them to cry out in surprise. Dumbfoundedly, they stared at the innumerable spiritual lights that were sparkling with eye-piercing brilliance. However, very quickly, their gazes congealed on that gigantic sparkling and transparent spirit crystal, which was radiating a terrifying spiritual energy. Their gazes immediately turned sluggish, as the spiritual energy present was enough to cause them to gulp their saliva down. There is someone down there. There were some people with sharp eyesight, as they managed to spot Mu Chen, who was preparing to quietly sneak away. Instantly, they cried out in shock. Everyone's gazes instantly turned over and stared stubbornly at Mu Chen's figure. When they had identified the figure, all of their gazes turned slightly sluggish. How can Mu Chen be there? Thought Mu Fengyang as the corner of his mouth twitched. Hurriedly, he turned his head towards the gigantic hole. The black pagoda suddenly disappeared at this instant, revealing a bottomless hole beneath it. Upon being spotted, Mu Chen no longer continued hiding. Shooting out of the hole, he sent a smile towards everyone while saying, "Just now, I was mysteriously smashed underground, and discovered a slightly strange thing." Everyone stared at him suspiciously, as they obviously did not trust him. However, this was not the time to argue about that with him, as everyone stared with fiery gazes at the innumerable eye-piercing spiritual lights below. There were so many there. If they were able to snatch some for themselves, it was already sufficient to be a rewarding journey. Roar? However, just as their greed was growing increasingly stronger, the spiritual king started to roar, opening its big mouth as it sucked in the air. Everyone saw the innumerable spiritual lights immediately converging together, before completely being devoured into the spiritual king's body. At the same time, the massive spirit crystal had also flown up. Upon seeing this, Mu Chen's eyes sparkled as he explosively shot forward. In the next instant, his palm patted on the spirit crystal. His palm did not shatter the crystal. However, a black flame quietly shot into it, while Mu Chen explosively retreated away. As for the spirit crystal, it shot up and was devoured by the spiritual king into its body. After a short span of a number of breaths, the underground world had become devoid and empty. Everyone became stunned and stupefied. However, when Mu Chen saw this, his heart jumped crazily. That spiritual king had completely absorbed everything below. Would that mean that it would cross over its newborn state? Once its power dramatically increased, with their lineup, would they be able to defend against it? He raised his head as his scalp tingled, only to see the eye-piercingly bright spiritual king, akin to a scorching sun. The brilliance coming from it caused several people to be unable to look directly at it. In addition, its already gigantic body started to expand once again. A strong spiritual energy started to radiate out, as if its entire body had summoned a storm. Wang Tong, quickly! Let's go! Mu Chen fiercely shouted out, instantly dropping his head and shooting explosively out. Upon seeing the entire spectacle, Wang Tong and his two brothers faintly hesitated, before clenching their teeth, and closely followed Mu Chen. Luo Li and Ran and the other girls, who were not far away, immediately shot over and followed closely behind them. As for Zhao Qingshan, Xu Huang and the rest, they were somewhat unwilling, their faces fluctuating indeterminately. Roar! Just as they were hesitating, the spiritual king roared, creating a 1,000-foot wave of spiritual energy. It violently impacted their bodies, causing numerous figures to spurt a mouthful of blood out as their faces turned pale. Let's go! The faces of Zhao Qingshan and their group finally had an intense change as they looked with some palpitation in their hearts at Spiritual King, who had already expanded to over 300 feet. Clenching their teeth, they explosively retreated away. Everyone was now retreating in distress, not daring to have half an idea of fighting that Spiritual King. As they retreated, the Spiritual King stopped expanding in size. It furiously roared as its eyes, brimming with brilliance, locked onto Mu Chen, who was shooting off into the distance. It could discover that the missing piece of its spirit crystal was on his body. As long as it could obtain that spirit crystal, it would be able to completely cross over from its weakest, newly born stage. Roar! While furiously roaring, it shook the earth and mountains as it moved, crazily chasing after him. The earth shuddered as the countless spirit pawns that formed the spirit pawn army was restless at this moment. Streams of light shot out from the depths, without daring to stop for the slightest degree. These spirit pawns did not obstruct those that were rushing out. However, under the former's struggle, they were able to feel the pressure that's akin to a spirit king was rapidly spreading from the depths. This pressure made them unable to move a single step. Bang! As the pressure radiated out, a dazzling giant that's over 300 meters high stepped out from the depths, quaking the earth and shook the mountains as it marched forth. The earth split apart under its feet as the ferocious cracks continuously extended out. Roar! The eye-piercingly bright giant roared, causing incomparable berserking spiritual energy sound waves that shattered the unfortunate spirit pawns as they radiated out. However, the giant did not pay the slightest bit of attention to them as it locked onto the figure at the front and relentlessly pursued it without the thought to give up. Damn it! Seeing the Spirit King that did not at all care about other people as it chased after him, Mu Chen's face changed. Why is that big fellow chasing us? Wang Tong and the rest had also discovered the situation and instantly became slightly flustered. As of now, the strength of this Spirit King had risen dramatically. Without even talking about them, even if Zhao Qingshan and Xu Huang were to attack together, they would still not be able to be its opponent. It's coming for me. Mu Chen replied while clenching his teeth as he continued, I'll lure it away by myself. You guys leave first and find a safe place. That's too dangerous. Wang Tong, and Ran and the rest hurriedly exclaimed. If it continues to chase us like that, it'll eventually catch up to us. Mu Chen replied as he shook his head. There wasn't much panic showing within his black eyes. Taking a deep breath, he declared, let's split up. I'll accompany you. Luo Li exclaimed while softly biting her lip. She was extremely firm and blunt. The Spirit King before them was extremely strong. If Mu Chen tried to deal with it alone, it might be very troublesome for him. Therefore, she had to come along with him. Mu Chen faintly hesitated, before nodding his head. He did not try to show off his ability. As of now, although the Spirit King could not be considered as having completely crossing over from its weak and newly born phase, there was no need to doubt its strength. If he tried to deal with it alone, it truly would be very thorny. After nodding his head, he did not say anything more. With a move of his body, a dragon roar resounded out as he immediately displayed the dragon soaring art. His figure transformed into the shadow of a dragon, rapidly shooting towards another direction akin to lightning. Upon seeing this, Luo Li's beautiful body moved and immediately followed after him. Her speed appeared to be not much slower than Mu Chen, who was displaying the dragon soaring art. Roar! Following the change in Mu Chen's direction, the Spirit King that was chasing them had also immediately sensed it. While roaring, it chased after Mu Chen once again. The ray of light in the front, the giant at the back. The earth trembled as they rapidly disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Let's go. Wang Tong looked over at Mu Chen's and Luo Li's figures heading into the distance and clenched his teeth. Immediately turning his body, he brought and ran and the rest towards the outside of the Spirit Pawn army. As of now, if they were to follow Mu Chen's side, not only would they not be of the slightest use, they would even drag him down. The other people had also understood. Although worry and unease filled their eyes, they still rapidly followed Wang Tong and left. Since the Spirit King was chasing after Mu Chen, the people who were fleeing in fright from other directions had also noticed this. Soon after, they gradually came to a stop as they looked at the direction that the Spirit King had headed towards with doubtful eyes. What happened? Why did the Spirit King only head towards Mu Chen, up in the air? Zhao Qingshan said with his brows wrinkled. Previously, only Mu Chen had entered the underground cave. He had definitely obtained something there, therefore, making the Spirit King chase after him. Mu Fengyang replied while clenching his teeth, his eyes brimming with the fires of anger. He was the one that thought of luring trouble to Mu Chen. However, who would have thought that Mu Chen was not only not sent out of the hunting grounds, he had even discovered the secret underground cave. Although they did not know exactly what Mu Chen did in the underground cave, since he was able to make the Spirit King relentlessly chase after him without giving up, how could the thing that he had obtained be common? Speaking from this point, didn't he give Mu Chen a chance to obtain a treasure? Thinking about this scenario, Mu Fengyang was furious till his face turned green. What should we do? Mu Fengyang said as he looked towards Zhao Qingshan. They had lost over 10 people, and they haven't even dredged up a single hair. How could this make them give up? Zhao Qingshan's eyes sparkled, as he was similarly not willing to leave without the slightest bit of harvest. Slightly muttering to himself, he clenched his teeth and replied, "Let's wait a bit before following those two. Let's see if there will be a chance for us. If there is, we'll attack. If there isn't, we'll rapidly retreat." He was a decisive person, and was clear that the current Spirit King was too strong and not something they could deal with. The only thing they could do was wait for an opportunity. If they rashly attacked, they would only end up being sent out of the hunting grounds. Mu Fengyang nodded his head and looked towards the direction the Spirit King had gone. If the benefits of this place was obtained by Mu Chen, he'll truly be depressed until he vomited blood. In the air, at another direction, Xu Huang had also stopped in his tracks. His gaze stared at the direction the Spirit King had gone, his eyes sparkling. Within the layers of mountain, a strong gale resounded as two figures shot by. Without the slightest degree of stopping, they shot over to a distant place. Not long after they shot by, the earth started to move, the mountains started to shake, and the mountain range started to collapse. In the distance, a giant over 300 meters tall rapidly shot over. Eye-piercing spiritual light caused it to look akin to a clump of scorching suns, making several people unable to directly stare at it. It furiously roared, causing some spiritual lights to shoot out, smashing apart mountains. While doing so, it crazily chased after the two figures in the front. Its figure was gigantic, however, its speed was as fast as lightning. Using its full strength to pursue them, it able to gradually close in on Mu Chen, who had displayed the dragon soaring art. Its speed is very fast. Furthermore, it has an endless supply of spiritual energy. If we continue running, we'll end up being the first to be unable to maintain this speed. Luo Li shot a look at the Spirit King, who was gradually getting closer. Her eyes were grave as she looked at Mu Chen. Mu Chen's face sank. He naturally knew that what Luo Li said was not false. The Spirit King had locked onto him. Obviously, it would not give up until it snatched the broken fragment of the spirit crystal back from Mu Chen. However, once it snatched the fragment back, it would truly cross over from its newly born phase. At that time, perhaps even a true heavenly completion stage expert would be unable to hold it back. If, by any chance, still wanted to kill him, there would be nothing more miserable than that. Mu Chen's eyes faintly sparkled. As of now, the best way was to kill the Spirit King here. Although the Spirit King was very strong, he wasn't forced to the point where he had no methods left. This was originally prepared for He Yao. Since you, bastard, wants to chase me relentlessly without giving up, I'll let you have a taste of it first. Mu Chen was also a decisive person, and quickly decided on his decision. A chilling intent flashed within his eyes. Tilting his head towards Luo Li, he said, "Can you hold that bastard back for a little while?" "Okay." Luo Li gently nodded her small head. Her jade-like hand slowly clenched tightly around the Luotian sword on her waist. On its scabbard, there seemed to be a frosty air circulating around it. Mu Chen gave a smile. He wasn't especially worried about Luo Li, as the latter's methods were something that even he was unable to clearly understand. In addition, there was the Luotian sword in her hands. That was truly a divine weapon. Although it was in a sealed state at the moment, the two simple words, divine weapon, was synonymous to strong and powerful. Mu Chen had never even seen the appearance of a divine weapon before. That was a thing that would even cause a sovereign's heartbeat to race. After the two had made a consensus, their figures rapidly shot out, before descending onto the peak of a distant mountain. Upon landing, Mu Chen immediately crossed his legs and sat down. His eyes were faintly closed, while his hands rapidly created seals. While his spiritual energy fluctuated, spiritual seals condensed and rapidly flew out one after another. "He wants to set up a spiritual array?" Luo Li said, while staring at Mu Chen. From the looks of it, he obviously wanted to set up a spiritual array to counter the Spirit King. However, the Spirit King before them was tyrannical. Even a rank 4 spiritual array would be hard to cause any life-threatening injuries towards it. Unless it was a rank 5 spiritual array. However, as of now, Mu Chen was considered a rank 4 spiritual array master. Deploying a rank 4 spiritual array wasn't that difficult for him. However, if it was a rank 5 spiritual array, even if he had comprehended the heart array state, it might still not be that easy. The higher the rank of the spiritual array, the more complicated it was. When it reached a certain degree, the heart array state would not be sufficient to provide much of an advantage. After all, the heart array state was still a very elemental state in the eyes of those true spiritual array masters of the Grandmaster and ancestral ranks. Luo Li's vision looked towards Mu Chen's handsome and outstanding face before giving a faint smile. If anyone was to compare their confidence in Mu Chen, there would be no one who had more than her. This confidence was accumulated during the year that they had lived together in the spiritual road. At that cruel place, this youth had never given up from the start till the end. He might have received oppression and had failed before, but he had endured all of it. In addition, he had become increasingly tenacious. In this point, even the arrogant Luo Li had felt quiet admiration in her heart. If not for Ji Xian taking fancy for her in the spiritual road, the usually calm Mu Chen would not have bothered to start such a slaughter which had led to him being kicked out of the spiritual road. Ji Xian. Luo Li's jade-like hand slowly clenched tightly as the cold glint in her eyes condensed. Thinking about his talent, after entering the Spiritual Saint Academy, he would be the most outstanding person there. From the looks of it then, Mu Chen still had the chance to cross hands with him. At that time, it would be a real exchange. Roar? A roar rang out while Luo Li's mind was still elsewhere. The earth trembled, and the mountain range continuously shook. In the far distance, a brilliance akin to a scorching sun swept over. Luo Li looked towards the incoming Spirit King, before shooting a look at Mu Chen, who had closed his eyes and was preparing a spiritual array. Her jade-like hand suddenly gripped the longsword on her waist tightly. With a gentle tap of her slender jade-like feet, her beautiful figure shot forward in a flash, and appeared in mid-air. "You should stop." Luo Li's clear and limpid eyes reflected the gigantic image as a clear and cold voice resounded within this stretch of the world, while carrying along a swift and fierce sword chi that was gradually condensing together. The Spirit King did not have any intelligence, and naturally could not understand her words. It looked at the puny figure blocking its path. While roaring, the gigantic palm had carried along a spiritual light that blotted the sky as it violently patted down on Luo Li in a fury. A chilling intent flashed past Luo Li's exquisite face. Those clear and limpid eyes grew increasingly incisive. In the next instant, she took a step forward. With a tremble of her jade-like hand, the black longsword in her hand instantly unsheathed. Ring! A clear sound rang out, as the entire stretch of the world reverberated with the light roar of the sword being unsheathed. A sky-blue sword chi transcended the heavens and rushed to the skies as if it wanted to shatter the heavens and crush the earth. Bang! That sword chi violently shot towards the giant palm that furiously patted over, causing metallic sounds to ring out. In the distance, Zhao Qingshan, Xu Huang and the rest that had chased after them stared dumbfoundedly as the Spirit King was sent flying. A mountain peak was smashed apart as it flew backwards. All of them sucked in a breath of cold air as they stared in shock at the scene before them, where a young lady dressed in an ink-black dress stood in mid-air. In her hand was a long sword, rippling with faint fluctuations as it slowly radiated out. It was a scene that had startled everyone. This video will end here.